trying to get everything set up, and there. It is trying to find that button on Facebook to go live, Matt. And I'll tell you, it has. I don't know if you know this or not. By the way, this is Dwayne Lester, Lessons for Learning Leaders Live. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining. Thanks for downloading. However you got hold of this, I appreciate it. Matthew, we are coming up on 8 years that we've known each other. Do you know that?
Wow. Wow. 8 years. It doesn't feel like that long, but
No.
we've been at this for a while. So
So we both worked for an organization. I started there in 2015, and it's funny. I remember you guys telling me we didn't know if you'd fit in, Dwayne. You were really quiet, and you never hung out with us, after the meetings. And I was like, I was just broke. I didn't have I have a lot of kids, so I didn't go out. But um, I think we quickly after that, once I started, it was actually work we did as a subgroup at the organization where we started getting to know each other. And 8 years though, it went so fast. But I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. One of the things that uh, wanted to talk to you about was a conversation that we'd had actually at Four Courts in Arlington, Virginia. But I wanted to go back, and I first just want to hear your story. So can you tell me a little bit about your story?
great, Dwayne, and really thanks for the opportunity. It's so much fun to reminisce with you and other former colleagues when we get together. You guys are up here sometimes. I'm still in Arlington, but I grew up outside Nashville. I wanted to be a high school history teacher. I wanted to teach history and civics and economics. And halfway through the college experience, where I was learning how to be a teacher, my professor said, "Get out while you still can. You'll hate the red tape, the bureaucracy." And it was at that point that I decided I wanted to go to law school. And thank God, almost every day I dodged that bullet. A lot of my friends, I graduated from my undergraduate experience in the first economic downturn of my life, 2008, 2009, and took the LSAT. And while I was waiting to hear back from law schools, I got a job offer at Leadership Institute. This was in spring of 2009. Never lived further than 15 minutes from my parents. I grew up in the town that I went to college, and and I said, okay, let's move 650 miles away from home and see what happens. And it was at that point I was originally working with college students, organizing, teaching them how to be effective activists on campus. When my opportunities expanded, and I started teaching, campaign and professional staff how to be involved in that effort. And fast forward now, what, 14 years, and I'm back at Leadership Institute after a 8 or 10 year hiatus. I did direct mail fundraising. I joined some friends doing training, and that's where I met you, Dwayne. And I did that for 5 or 6 years, and now I'm back here at Leadership Institute, organizing and executing a lot of our careers training. So for professionals who want to either level up in their current job or find a job opportunity in the public policy process. And right now, as we're recording this, we've got one of our marquee programs, the Foreign Service Opportunity School. It's a partnership with the Institute on World Politics, and it basically teaches participants to pass the Foreign Service exam so they can go out and engage in foreign policy, diplomacy, work at the State Department. And we brought that back. I think this is the first one since the pandemic that we've held in person, and we're really blessed to have such a great partnership with an organization like Institute on World Politics. So that's what my team's doing today while I'm here in the studio talking with you.
So tell me about the Leadership Institute. What are they about? What do they do?
The Leadership Institute was founded in 1979 to identify, recruit, and train conservatives and pro liberty advocates in the public policy process. The flagship school is our youth leadership school. It is a 29-hour, 2 day sit and get program
Mm.
that is supposed to mimic the life of a campaign. So it starts early in the morning, goes into the wee hours of the morning, 2 days in a row. And that was something that our founder, Morton Blackwell, perfected in the 1960s. When he founded Leadership Institute in 1979, that was the first program, and we've expanded to now more than 54 training programs that teach young conservative activists, that teach professionals in the process, that even teach people who want to go on TV. We have just down the hall, we've got a live television studio where we teach people how to do live TV hits. A lot of the stuff that I've done on Fox News and other television outlets, I've learned here on how to communicate through a camera, which I'm breaking this fourth wall with you today. But to go and do and communicate the principles of free societies, of freedom and opportunity.
So you talked a little bit about, you mentioned sit and get there. And can you tell me more about what that means to you?
Yeah. So, one of the things that really revolutionized my outlook on training is going to that first training magazine certification with you, the Master Trainer program with Bob Pike, who I know is such a big part of this program. And but a lot of the training that institutionally we do here at Leadership Institute is what I call sit and get. And that is to say, you're sitting at a desk, some expert comes with a PowerPoint presentation and gives you, 10 or 20 or 50 slides of what you should know, and you better take notes, that you would then go out and apply in the real world to whatever activity that you're engaged in. And that is something that I've known about Leadership Institute programming for a long time. It is something that in some programs we're sort of relegated to in that regard, but it is something that I'm trying to break out of in the careers division, where we do a lot of the programming that equips people with the tools to be successful in their current role or to identify the next one. And so, I want to move away from that sit and get platform and philosophy into a really immersive style where attendees are participating with one another, where the presenter is facilitating rather than lecturing. Many of the things that you talk about here and that you share in your newsletter.
So I remember that first day at the Training Magazine Conference at Expo. That was the second year that I'd advocated going. It was the first year we actually went, and it was really kind of nerve-wracking for me because it was a big bet for me. I was saying, look, we should pay to have these folks go there. And I needed to show an ROI. I needed to show, look, we created value here. And you really helped me midway through day one. I don't know if you recognize this or not, or even remember this, but about midway through day one, you came up to me and you came up to Ryan, who was there with us, and you said, I've learned more this morning. I've gotten more value out of this morning than I'd hoped to get over the next 3 days. And that was helpful. I mean, that helped me calm down quite a bit. So I appreciate you saying that. But there is kind of a expectation, isn't there, that when you're going to a training, that you're going to sit there and you're going to get trained, that you are there, you're simply a receptacle that this knowledge is going to be poured into. And have you noticed when you don't do that people are a bit surprised or taken aback? What's the reaction that you see when you don't meet that expectation of delivering what I had someone at my last training call a boring 9-to-5 lecture?
Well, here's what we expect, right? In most of the trainings that Leadership Institute provides, and I would say that other organizations that do similar kinds of training provide, is you bring in an expert, somebody who knows the industry that they're in. For instance, let's say we've got our Foreign Service Opportunity School right now that's taking place across the river in DC for the next 2 days. I guarantee a majority of that program are perhaps current, certainly former diplomats, people who've worked in the Foreign Service, people who have been employed at the State Department or other aspects of foreign policy and diplomacy. Our friends at International Republican Institute or other organizations, certainly Institute on World Politics. And we, as the infrastructure that delivers this training, expects that expert to deliver whatever he or she knows. And the individuals in attendance will then glean the information from them. The people who do the training aren't actually experts in training for the most part, right? So to know how to train, we have to actually be trained how to train. And I think that's the element that I took from the first half of that first day of the certification was I can know the stuff that I'm teaching, but how do I communicate this stuff so that it sticks with that whatever I'm attempting to impart sticks with the individuals as they go back out and try to accomplish whatever they'd like to accomplish. So to that end, I am constantly looking for ways to immerse and engage our attendees in the programming. And luckily, I've encouraged my team to do that. We have a program called Rising to the Top in Washington D.C., and it basically is it's a bit of networking. So there's hard skills on how to network. There's soft skills on actually executing on the networking, and some element of that program we have the people in attendance move from station to station to articulate in a small group their skills, their what drives them, their motivation, their passion, what they organizations they've been affiliated with or jobs they want to hold, titles they want to hold as they sort of navigate their career path, and we have them troubleshoot, navigate, and explore those opportunities with the other people in their group. So rather than lecturing how to get a job at this place or how to channel XYZ skill into this opportunity, actually have them do it and explore it with others who are in the same boat as they are. It's a really cool experience to see 25 or 30 people in the room moving from station to station, exploring their skill set and their motivations to see what where they might land next.
It sounds like such a profound respect for the individual experiences, as seeing these people as individuals with their own backgrounds, their own experiences, and then giving them the opportunity to highlight those rather than going with a one size fits all. Here's how you're all going to get a job, despite the fact that I don't know any of you that well and I don't know your backgrounds or what your skills are. Here's a training to do that. It's a respect for the individual, it's a respect for their experiences, and I would wager that most of the people coming out of that feel that respect also. Am I wrong?
They do, and one of the things that say, certainly that I say in the careers training, there is not a one size fits all prescriptive pathway to through your career. Certainly we want it to look from if this is a chart here, from beginning or intermediate or entry level career expectation all the way to whatever retirement is. We'd like it to be like that, but it looks more like the S&P 500 or NASDAQ index, where we some jobs are help us advance a little faster. Some opportunities are withheld from us or delayed. Some situations are setbacks. In my own professional career, I've had a couple of professional setbacks that hasn't made that line go straight up to the top, from beginner to intermediate and expert. And so we can't expect a one size fits all training to impart not only the right knowledge, but to have them take away the right theme from that. So if their individual career navigation and career moves are all different, we can't have a one size fits all training for a room of 25 people who are on their own career paths. So I do think that, and we're seeing in the feedback from participants that they recognize the difference between traditional lecture style presentation and more immersive, participant centered navigating of big concepts and exploration of those themes. We're seeing that in the feedback from our participants.
So I wasn't going to talk about this, but this is the nature of a conversation. You never know where it's going to go. And I'm curious, you talked about the fact that traditionally Leadership Institute's been more sit and get, PowerPoint driven, instructor centered, but you're pushing your folks to go a different direction. And I'm wondering how you're overcoming the obstacles there, because that can be, change is difficult. Steinbeck said it, people fear change, especially change for the better. So what kind of roadblocks are you facing and how are you overcoming them?
To the extent that my specific division is facing roadblocks, we're not. I think that I've got buy-in from my team. The way that our training divisions work here, I'll pull back the curtain a little bit, is we have 15, 16 training divisions. Perhaps that is a number I just pulled out of my ear here. But we have our youth leadership school, which is a flagship program. When I serve as guest faculty, I know that there is a presentation that I have to give. I try to make that more involved and engaging and immersive than a traditional lecture style. But in my own division, we really don't have that problem. I've got the buy-in from the team. They do a really good job exploring different ways they can package or present information, and they're really open to explore. The success is that the feedback that we get, other people hear about it. I hope that it sort of moves over into other divisions, and I certainly encourage it when I'm interacting with other training divisions, depending upon what it is that we're engaged in. But by and large, most of the training divisions here are on their own track. I really hesitate to say siloed, but we are, careers training does careers programming, communications training does communications programming, and the grassroots does grassroots training out in the states with activists. And all I can do is show what my programming produces and allow it to speak for itself. I haven't really encountered a hurdle. Now, there might be a situation where if I brought somebody onto the team who was less comfortable with that. But I think it would be pretty easy to navigate so far, and I'm really proud of what my team is doing to break down whatever that barrier would be, to fully explore what you can do with a training program when you sort of unleash the participants to explore and navigate alongside you or with your facilitation.
I think one of the mistakes that people make, I know I've made this mistake, is when you have something like this, something that is so against the norm, so against what business as usual is, that you bring this new innovative idea in and you present it and you expect everybody to be as excited about it as you are, and everybody to see and immediately say, yes, let's everyone go do this. And I'm reminded of the diffusion of innovation theory, that rather than, if you unless you're like the authoritarian manager who says we are all doing this way now, all of you need to change. We don't want to be that person, but you might say, let's go to the innovators first. Who are the people who are going to embrace this change first? Get them working on it and get them talking to the people we know who are the early adopters. And once you get the innovators and the early adopters going on, then you can start working on that early majority. And at that point, if you get all three of those, you'll get the late majority and the laggards later. But we can drive ourselves crazy thinking we're just going to introduce something and then everybody's going to jump at it. That's simply not how people work. And it goes back to recognizing that we're not a hive mind, we're not a collective, that we are a group of individuals. And some folks, when they see a different way of doing things that isn't sit and get, they get excited about it and they want to go do it. And they're confused as to why people aren't. And it's that recognition that first, we're individuals, and second, there's actually a process that innovation goes through, and you can't subvert that.
Excellent points. I think that in my role, my very specific role, where I direct the division, I think of mostly what I do is and I tell my team this, my primary responsibility is to get the bureaucracy out of the way. We don't have that much, but I will occasionally have to make the case to my vice president or to our president and founder, on my thoughts behind something. And I think primarily my role is to address the concerns that come from the leadership structure and allow my team to innovate. I've got a guy on the team who was 10 years in the private sector, in healthcare, consulting, and other aspects of that industry, and he's created some really cool stuff based on his professional experience and what he thinks should come from careers training. The goal for us in the careers division is to create immersive, engaging programming that allows and encourages a participant to see his or her professional potential and then connect them with employment opportunities on the back end, so that at the end of that, let's say, we have somebody who came to one of our trainings, a resume and cover letter workshop, and they beefed up their resume and cover letter based on the training, and then we are able to connect them through our employment platform with a prospective employer. They get a job, and 90 days in, they can look back and say, I took this training, it helped me leverage my skills and experience in this fashion. I've landed a job and I'm being successful in that role, and I credit this experience, the totality of not only the training but the relationships we build through the training, and through the other things that we offer in the division. And that's really cool stuff. Super cool.
You told me a story. We were at Four Courts in Arlington, which I'm glad is back. I really like that place. And it reminded me of experiences I've had. I remember going to a large conference and having a main stage opportunity. And as people are walking in, they're getting my worksheets. And they were expecting someone to come out and talk to them for half an hour or an hour and just give this speech basically. And when I got there, it's like, no, get your pens out. I need to ask you some questions. We need to get the bottom of some stuff. I need your help with this. And they were very much, I mean, I was out in the audience, working the crowd, getting answers here and there. They were totally not prepared for that. I actually had, I had one person, the feedback I got was, it's never like this here. And I'm like, it's okay. You're safe. We're going to get through this together. But you had a situation where you had a similar setup where you had to go in and present, you had to deliver content, and a lot of the other people there were very much doing a sit and get lecture style, presentation style, and you opted to go more facilitated discussion. And I'm curious, tell me about the process, how you went about designing this or changing it from a sit and get lecture style to more of a facilitated discussion style.
So the back end of the sort of the behind the curtain on this story is I was out of the country through the negotiation process of this of staff, office administrators, communications directors, and people who were auxiliary. So maybe not on the Hill, but also in similar roles at issue organizations or others. About 50 people in the room, and I came back. I had about 2 weeks to plan for this, and I'm looking at the schedule, and we had a total of 3 hours, a 3 hour block. And at Leadership Institute, we count somebody as Leadership Institute trained if they've taken 3 hours of programming, and so we had 90 minutes of what they were calling a lunch plenary session, 90 minutes of lunch plenary session, and another 90 minutes after that. In sequence. So it was 90 minutes at lunch, and then sort of a refresh, reset of the room, and another 90 minutes. I have sat through a, 100 lunch plenary sessions. You and I have been to many of the same conferences. We have heard panel speakers at lunches ad infinitum for a decade almost now, and I could not live with myself to give them a lunch plenary panel discussion of whatever. So knowing they were all office administrators, chiefs of staff, communications directors, people who had direct reports, people who were managing the day-to-day operations of a U.S. Senate office or of an issue organization. And I went to Chat GPT. I know that you and Bob talked about this on a couple episodes a while back, and it is increasingly. I think the AI can be helpful. So I went to Chat GPT and I said, we had about 50 in attendance. These were rounds, 8 top rounds. In a lunch setting, a buffet. So they go through the buffet and then they would come sit down at their tables. And I looked up. I asked ChatGPT to give me um, like 8 or 10 themes of management struggles in a U.S. Senate office. Like, what are the things? What are the elements of management that you have to be on the lookout for, that you want to impart on a team, to strengthen a team, to improve operations? And it gave me 10. Communication. So we had communication as an issue. We had constituent services as an issue. We had team building as an issue. And what I did was every table got one of those themes, and they had to come up. And so I had sticky notes, big white sticky notes all around the lunchroom with each of these themes at the top. And I said, okay, I want you to spend, obviously, they're getting their plates, they're sitting down. And as people fill the room, Dwayne, we don't wait till everyone's seated and ready, because that does a disservice to the people who are early and who show up and who are prepared to learn. And so we immediately started. On your table is a theme, and I want you to discuss with members of your group um, the specific elements of this theme that you have seen in your office, in your own offices. What are the we started with, like, what are the problems that you see? So we created a list of problems for each of these themes. And then I went through, and that was 15 to 20 minutes of programming. And then we went through each of the problems, and I said, nobody's we're not calling out anybody, but share some stories about these problems. So then individuals would share stories. So let's say, Dwayne, you're at a table, and your table is communication, and I'm at a table, and my table is constituent services. We then opened up the discussion to everyone, because if somebody at the constituent services table had a problem with communication, we wanted them to be able to articulate or tell that story as well. And so, as they were sharing elements of the problems they faced in these themes of management, we had other people from other tables articulate how they had solved those problems. And so we had 90 minutes, and 90 minutes went by really quickly, of identifying these problems and then having them solve the problems at their tables and between tables in a way that was really exciting. I thought to myself, I'm not a chief of staff. I don't have the experience and expertise of a chief of staff. I don't understand the problems of a chief of staff, but I guarantee that other people in this room have experience, know the problems, and have at least solved some of them. So let's get to them and have them articulate that. And it was a really cool experience to see. It took a minute for them to warm up. And in fact, I said, I didn't go to school for dentistry, but I will pull teeth. And this experience is something that I often say,
Great line.
to warm people up and say, look, this only works if you participate, because I didn't bring a PowerPoint. I don't have any slides. I don't have a prepared presentation. So we're gonna sit here in awkward silence for a few minutes, and then you're gonna realize that the problems will come from the tables, but also the solutions and the answers will come from you as well. And it was really cool to see.
What I like about that setup is it brings those problems directly from them. You're not addressing problems that somebody may have somewhere, maybe one person. You're dealing with problems that they've identified because they're dealing with them or have dealt with them in the past. So that is immediately relevant to them. So there, the question is, what's in it for me? What's in it for me is we can get solutions to problems I'm facing right now, and I can walk out of here with a list of solutions and a list of actions that I can start taking to start overcoming these problems that I'm dealing with. It's not a hypothetical. This is real life. And the other thing I like about it is you're crowdsourcing solutions from people who have already dealt with this. So rather than say you could try this or you could do this, maybe this will work, you're getting people in the room who have said, I've dealt with that in the past. I've been where you are. This is what I did that worked. You should do the same thing. And if that doesn't work, come and talk to me and we'll figure something else out.
And at the end, Dwayne, we did a gallery walk of all 10 of the sticky notes, so that people could take photos and make additional notes, and provide additional feedback. So we had them spread about the room, but toward the end, I combined them all onto one wall, and everybody walked through, and they looked at the problems after a robust, at this point we're at 60 minutes of active discussion in navigating the problems, and they went through and made additional notes and took photos. And so at the very end, there was this recap, where they went through, as we call it, this gallery walk notion. And it was really cool to see, because they came into the room. I can almost guarantee they came into the room expecting a 90-minute lecture. It was funny, because they didn't even pay for a screen or a projector, and the ballroom was not designed to throw. We need pipe drape in front of the big windows to even have a screen there. So I wasn't ever going to be able to give a presentation the way the room was set up in the traditional sit and get lecture style. So when I walked in the day before, I showed up to the venue, I walked in the day before, and I didn't decide until that morning what I was actually going to do. Because again, none of this is prescriptive, especially as you're troubleshooting problems in an office. You know, everybody has different problems, but everybody has faced similar problems, and have many of them have navigated the solutions. So I wanted the problems and the answers to come from within the audience.
Sardie Glove is a guy that I think you've seen Sardie Glove train at the training conference. I bring him up. I've gone to his lectures several times. The last one I went to was his master facilitator course, and it was a bit awkward because the people at my table kept telling him that I was a big Sardie Glove fanboy, which I couldn't deny. But one of the things he said in that is that you're not a master facilitator until you're left with nothing but your mind, their mouth, or well, your mouth, their mind, and their problems. You're left with your mouth, their mind, and their problems.
Mhm.
And so when I look at what you did here, my first thought is, well, Matt's a master facilitator, because that's exactly what this was. You just put up some flip chart paper, you used your mouth, you collected their problems, and then used their minds to solve them. And I would wager that that would be 100 times more valuable than you standing on that stage and delivering a set of bullet points that people may or may not write down. So
Dwayne,
fantastic job.
it's not even close. It's not even. I had I walk into the room the day before, and I almost had this flash forward, like, what would this look like if I wanted to come in and claim, in my bio, that I'm some level of expert in this realm, and then immediately lose that credibility with a, in my mind, what would have been a boring presentation. I think that they were able to navigate the problems. They came up with solutions, and the feedback that I got from a couple of people in particular it validated what I was doing is like the right move. Now we did the back half of that. The second 90 minutes was a conversation with somebody on our team, a guy named Rick Tyler, who is just a master communicator. He's on MSNBC a lot. In his personal capacity, but he's been a communications expert for a long time. Many of the attendees navigated communications traps of their senator or of their organization, and they wanted horror stories and exciting, this roller coaster ride of a comms professional. So we did an interview style moderated discussion on the back end, but it was certainly after 90 minutes of robust and engaging conversation where my only role was to facilitate the exploration of the problems and the solutions.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to tell us that story. It's such a great story and a great illustration of how you can take what could be a very boring 90 minutes and turn it into something that creates a lot of value, that is fun and memorable. So thank you for sharing that. I need to wrap this up. Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find Leadership Institute at leadershipinstitute.org. I am primarily on the Twitter or X, whatever we're calling it now, and it's just Matthew Hurt, MattheWHurtt. And a big part of my job is helping people land jobs in the public policy process. So, just about 15 years navigating the conservative and pro-liberty movement. I'm happy to help make connections for folks to identify their first opportunity, or if they're mid-career professionals, or if they're looking to make a shift in the public policy process. It's what I do full time, and it's so exciting. So I'm happy to help any of your listeners, any of the viewers, or anybody out there who stumbles upon this conversation.
All right, Matt. Thanks again for taking the time to do this. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Dwayne.
And next time I'm out there, we're going to Four Courts again, and you're going to tell me another story.